Perfect. Well, I think we'll get started and folks can join in as they are let in from the waiting room. But thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. We're really excited to share this new exciting program with you all. So we're just going to get started with a brief round of introductions. So why don't we start off with the Conservation District staff first, and then we'll move on to folks tuning in. I can just get started. My name is Bené Hirschon. I'm the outreach coordinator at the Cheshire County Conservation District.
I'm Lisa Moore, and I'm the district manager for Belknap County Conservation District.
I'm Amanda Littleton. I also work with the Cheshire.
I'm Steve Cook. I'm with the Merrimack County Conservation District, primarily focusing on local foods programs.
Perfect. Well, I think that's all the district staff on tonight. But I'd love for us to go around and just share your name, your farm name, if you're part of a farm, the town and the county you're located in. And I'd love to hear why you're interested in this opportunity and also how you heard about it.
Okay, I think Pam is Pam Gilbert.
Oh, I didn't see. Sorry, I have the screen up. Pam, do you want to introduce yourself?
You will unmute. I was masquerading as my brother-in-law, Kevin, sometimes. So I'm with Grafton County Conservation District.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam. Does anyone want to get us started with introductions?
I'm happy to hop in here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jameson Small, and I'm using my wife's computer tonight, so sorry about that. But I have Localberry, which is a new farm I'm starting. I'm leasing Emery Farm in Durham, Stratford County. So I heard about this in the weekly bulletin.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
I'm Henry Ahern. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Henry Ahern from Bonnie Bray Farms in Plymouth, Grafton County, and always interested in finding ways we can make the farm better. I raise deer, so I hope this stuff about grazing.
Awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Laurel, next.
What?
So do you want to next introduction?
Yeah, Laurel Cox, Tuckaway Farm, Lee, Stratford County. And I saw it in the market bulletin and then on email. And I'm not sure that we qualify, but I thought it was a nicely written grant and I certainly support it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, Laurel. So I think that is just about everyone. So if more people hop on, they can introduce themselves as we go. But I really just we'll just dive into the grant, just an introduction. So the mission of the New Hampshire Conservation District's Climate Resilience Grant is really to support and empower local farmers to build climate resilience throughout the Granite State. So this program is going to be focusing on reducing the impact of agriculture on climate change through mitigation, which is really the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and carbon sequestration. And the goal here is to increase the resiliency of New Hampshire farms in a changing climate, also known as adaptation practices. And the goal is to really implement these mitigation and adaptation practices while also meeting the farm's conservation goals and needs. So this is a really exciting, this is our first year of this grant round. All the 10 New Hampshire conservation districts have partnered together to make this possible. And so we're really excited to be offering it. And we're gonna just dive in a little bit into just an overview of how this year's round will work. And I also just want to add that this year's program was designed with a high level of farmer input to really ensure that the most pressing needs on farms are going to be met through this program. And we've worked with several close partners, conservation partners throughout the state to make sure that this program can work to fill in those gaps that are not currently being met by federal funds for farms. So let's dive into eligibility. So first, I think we've all hit the check box on this. You have to be a farm in New Hampshire to apply. Eligible farms must be selling direct to consumer or through wholesale markets for at least 2 years. Farms that apply also have to have a secure access, so either owning or leasing the land that they operate their farm on. And if they're leasing, the lease has to be in writing and must have a long-term enough for the farmer to complete the project and see a return on the investment. So just to make sure that it's a stable and ideally a long-term lease or long enough for the project to be implemented. And to receive funding, the farm must operate in compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. And we'll leave time at the end to just ask any questions, but this is kind of just the basics of the eligibility for this year's grant. Now, looking more into the eligible projects, we're seeking proposals from farms who want to make investments. We're going to go through all the different areas of the grant, but I just want to note before we dive in that we welcome proposals for projects that aren't represented on the list that we're about to go through. So as long as your project is aligned with the mission and goals of the program, so to increase climate resiliency, to mitigate and adapt to climate change, we really welcome all different ideas. And honestly, if your proposal doesn't match any of the ones we've mentioned on the list, we'd really be interested in learning more about your project, just so in the future, when we offer this grant, we could add it to our list of projects. I think the real goal here is to really inspire and encourage innovation on farms throughout the state. So the first round of eligible projects for this program are practices which promote minimizing soil erosion and maximizing carbon capture. So I'll just go through the list here. If you are interested in applying for this grant, some of the eligible projects that you could get funding for could be cover cropping, transitioning to reduced or no tillage, mulching, implementing windbreaks or buffers on your farm, purchasing equipment and materials to promote healthy soil practices. So this could be anything from silage tarps to roller crimpers or to low or no-till implements. And it's not highlighted on here, but we ask that if you are going to be buying equipment, this is more in line with the bigger equipment, like heavy duty equipment, we ask that it be new and under warranty, just to ensure the sustainability of these funds. Other eligible projects include transitioning to rotational grazing and grass-based systems. So for example, this could be funding for fencing, crop rotation, fixing gullies on fields or stopping further soil loss, soil nutrient management, soil testing, soil carbon monitoring and testing, and soil sensors. So that was a lot, but these are just a few of the different practices which have been noted to us through our conversations with farmers and with our federal partners and with our local partners as well. So the next category of projects that are eligible for funding through this grant are practices which promote sustainable water management. So this could be waste storage and management, runoff capture and reuse, riparian pollinator buffers and planting, efficient irrigation systems, efficient well systems, and water sensors, excuse me. And then these are a few of the miscellaneous categories. And I think there's a lot of room to expand here. So tonight, when we open up to questions and discussion, I'd love to hear more about what you might potentially be interested in implementing on your farm, because I think that we have a lot of great practices outlined on here, but we really want to welcome more as well. So other eligible projects include integrated pest management practices. So this could be fruit and vegetable netting, weather stations and sensors, and not necessarily in the IPM category, but climate batteries as an example of an innovative project that this grant would fund. So I'm just going to hand it over to Amanda, and she's going to explain a little bit more about the priority that projects will be given.
Thanks, Benay. All right, so each of the county conservation districts are going to evaluate them for funding.
Oh, you know what, Amanda? Amanda, I'm sorry to cut you off. You keep breaking up. So I can take on over for now. I think your connection might just be off right now. So just to go back to the different eligible projects, for priority of the projects, we are prioritizing projects that focus on climate change mitigation and adaptation. It's really crucial that they follow the application guidelines as outlined in the RFP. Priority funding will go to projects that have a really detailed and well thought out project implementation plan. And what we really want to see here is just that educational piece, but also that there's like not necessarily a guarantee, but that it's really well outlined that there's going to be long-term maintenance and a sustainability plan for this project. We also ask that, we are really trying to encourage innovation with the different projects that we are going to be awarding funding to, but we do ask that they have a strong track record of success and are also scientifically supported by partner agencies. So unfortunately, this is not an opportunity for experimental projects, but if that is of interest, we'd really be interested in hearing what those ideas are. Perhaps they could be implemented in our future grant rounds. We're also giving priority to projects that provide opportunities for the conservation districts to partner with the farm. We're really interested in projects that offer community education, but also are interested in working with farms that are willing to share their story or testimonial through our publications and social media. This is a really great way for these projects to gain traction, but there's also a great added benefit of just additional publicity for your farm. And we're also really interested in giving priority to projects that provide opportunities to partner with local conservation districts and organizations to monitor their projects and to also assess implementation and results to really help future programming and research in this area. Perfect. So funding, the following will be funded through this program. So this grant will fund practice implementation costs, material costs, architectural, land planning, or engineering services, or other direct expenses. I also, as I noted before, this project, the grant will provide funding for equipment, but all equipment purchased through the grant must be new and under product warranty. And if it's not, it just needs to have a lifespan that justifies the investment from the grant. We're really interested in the sustainability of these projects. As well, we will offer funding for technical assistance and consultant and legal services. And I'd also like to add that with that technical assistance piece, we've gathered a lot of really great partnerships throughout the state to offer technical assistance as well. So if there's a project you're interested in implementing, but you're not really sure how you would actually implement that on your farm, just know that we don't want that to be a barrier to you. And it's totally fine to outline that in your application that you're looking for technical assistance or a consultant. Okay, perfect. So these items unfortunately will not be funded through this grant. So those will be advertising, research and feasibility studies, efforts that won't lead to increased climate resiliency through adaptation or mitigation. This grant will not fund experimental projects or projects that have already been installed. And unfortunately for this year's grant round, there is not funding available for renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. Although this is something that we are really interested in as the conservation districts and funding in the future. But it's really important that we have a demonstrated interest when we reach out to funders. So if this is something you think your farm would be interested in the future, please let us know. We'd really be interested to hear in what type of project you'd implement if we did fund renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. But we also have a handful of resources we can point you to in the meantime if this is of interest. Perfect. And so I just want to emphasize that this is our first pilot year of the grant program. So because of that, funding for this grant round is limited to $50,000, and that's split up among the 10 New Hampshire conservation districts. So this year, there's only going to be $5,000 to give out for each district. So I just want to encourage you, yes, definitely apply. But just know that there's a limited amount of funding this year. So for example, if maybe next year you want to do a really big project, there might be more funds available in the future for that. But you know, we're just starting this program out, so we really just value any and all ideas. So don't let that be a barrier or discourage you from applying. So through the grant this year, it will provide a cost share program for farms. So the grant will cover 75% of project costs, but it won't exceed $5,000 per farm. And I think we have already covered this, but really, this number, I don't want it to discourage anyone, but we will be offering another grant round in November of 2022. So if you're thinking maybe, you know, we know that the timeline right now might not be ideal. It's a very busy time of year, but we welcome your applications now. We encourage your applications now, but just know that we will be offering this again as well. So just an overview of the timeline for this year's grant round. So our RFP and application went live on June 1st, and the proposals are going to be due on July 29th. So the way your applications will be submitted will be to your district. So if you have any questions regarding how to submit that, you'll want to contact your district directly to work that out. And it's my understanding that most districts are going to be accepting digital and hard copy applications. So throughout August to September, the districts are separately going to be doing proposal reviews. And during this time, you may be contacted for additional information or to clarify any points on your application. And by September 1st, all applicants will be notified of a funding decision, and then the projects must be completed and a report and photos are due by December 31st of 2023. So just given the way this pilot round has worked, there's actually extra time to implement the projects just due to, you know, once you find out your funding, it'll be harvest time. And we know that we want to make sure that you have plenty of time to implement your project to ensure its success. So how to create a strong proposal. We really encourage you to research your budget and plan. This is a really great opportunity to reach out to folks for quotes that will really strengthen your budget. And it's really important to note your research in your application. You know, we'd love to hear who did you reach out to get this budget? Were you provided quotes? You can feel free to attach a quote directly onto the application. And we just would like to see that effort and that explanation. And just to include as much detail as space allows. It's really important to also answer all the application questions. Sometimes we find folks are in a rush to get these in. And so it's just really important that attention to detail here. And, you know, we are, as the conservation districts, we're here to help you. If you have any questions or want to review applications prior to submitting, please don't hesitate to reach out. We know that grants can come off as intimidating, but this is not meant to be an intimidating process. We want this to be as smooth as possible. So don't hesitate to contact us. And for the district staff who are on the call right now, if you could just type in the best email or phone number for folks to reach you on the call, that would be great, just so everyone can have that information accessible to them. All right, so I've done a lot of talking. I've thrown a lot of information at you all, and I appreciate you all being here tonight. So I'd love to open it up to questions, as well as this is a great opportunity to also share your ideas for this year's application. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and open it up. Awesome. Henry, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I just question, if we apply for the grant this year and receive it, can we still apply for the grant next year to add to the project? Or is it because we got it this year, it kind of limits where we can go?
That's a great question. I believe, okay, Amanda just wrote a response. All right, so.
Oh, no, I was responding to another question in the chat. Yes.
Okay,
And the
perfect.
answer is yes.
Yes, you can reapply again for the next grant round.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the question. And I'll just say what there was a question in the chat. Judy had asked, can you repeat what the max grant is per farm? So it's $5,000 per farm this year. Any other questions? Yeah, I see a hand raised. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Great, thanks. So I was wondering, so the 2-year minimum requirement, is that subsequent years on that piece of land, or if you've moved around, is it experience, or is it on that piece of land that's a requirement? Is one question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I just want to be totally transparent with you all that these questions are great because it is our pilot year. So we're still figuring a lot ourselves. I believe as long as it's been 2 years of selling wholesale, you should be fine. And Amanda, you can feel free to interject if that's not correct.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. Sorry about my poor internet connection, but yeah, if you have a track record of selling to the public for 2 years as a minimum, and it's fine if you have moved around, your business has moved around. We know that's the nature of many farm businesses who are leasing land or trying to get secure land tenure.
Okay, great. And if I took a little break for a couple of years, does that change things also?
No, I think you should still be encouraged to put in an application. I think our intention by that was really to have folks who are not homesteaders, but were established businesses.
Right. Okay, great. And then another follow-up question would be, you know, like there's so many pieces around the cover cropping and rotation, and do you recommend, you know, if we can hit multiple elements into one bigger into this project, is that stronger than trying to stay super focused on one piece?
Yeah, so Amanda's giving a thumbs up. So I think, the more pieces you can hit in the adaptation and mitigation piece, that's great. But also, I mean, you can, if you're interested in cover cropping and you want your grant to focus on that, that's completely fine as well.
Okay.
So really this grant round is really meant to be open-ended just to support farms in the way to meet their goals. And, I think if you want to go big, totally go for it. But we'd also, I think, welcome applications that just focus on cover cropping itself. It doesn't have to be a big elaborate proposal.
Okay, great. And then
Yeah.
my final question is just around the IPM with the bug netting. Would low tunnels, if they also help with pest management, would that fall into this category if it also helps with these other elements?
Yeah, and I think as long as you provide supporting, as long as you provide an explanation as to why it supports that goal, that's totally fine. I
Okay.
think that the big piece with any of these applications is I think a lot of different practices feed into climate adaptation and mitigation. So as long as you have a strong explanation and a great detailed application and budget, you'll be fine.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, of
I have,
course. Thank you.
I have a question. Low tunnels is not something I'd heard before. Is that like is that like a row cover, or what is a low
It's-
tunnel?
Yeah, so essentially, like when you put down reman, you're using hoops. You can use perforated plastic instead. So it's a micro greenhouse essentially.
Oh, okay.
But I'm focused on day neutral strawberries, so season extension strawberries, and protecting those. Last year we had 15 inches of rain in July, like no bueno. So if I can control that that environment, then it certainly helps out, and definitely keeps out the pests. And so Becky Simon's done a lot of work with the low tunnels, and there's been a lot of research up at UVM too. And so yeah, Brookdale sells them now too. But yeah.
It doesn't interfere with pollination?
No, you're supposed to really keep, there's bungees on the sides, so you roll up the sides, kind of like a greenhouse, and because you want a little bit of airflow, but it's mostly you have to bring it down when you're going to either get cold or rain. So it takes a bit more of you have to be out there labor and kind of managing them, but no, the idea is a lot of people will leave one side open, and then the other side is just bungeed up.
Thank you.
Happy to, if you're interested, I always love to share this stuff, so I'll send the link to just like a basic.
Thanks.
Yeah, but that sounds like a great example of an adaptation project. So I think that would really meet the goals of this grant. Perfect. Any other questions from the group? I'd also love to hear what folks are planning on applying for. Oh yeah, Rebecca, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right, I'm here with my husband, James, and he's the one with the big ideas. Let me see if I can turn him.
So we've got 4 ponds on property that we use we pump some water out of the ponds, but we're interested in getting some equipment to actually be able to move water from one pond to another and actually start to do some irrigation on the property because our well can't handle it. Is that something that would be this project would look at funding?
Yeah, I think so. I think the best way to frame that application would be to say, due to climate change, we're experiencing increased droughts, and that an irrigation project would be climate adaptation. So I think that would fall right into the adaptation category.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both so much for your question, for tuning in.
I totally agree with Benet. I would just add one thing about if you are going to be doing irrigation, I think it would be beneficial the efficiency of irrigation that you're planning to address the if you're going to be pumping water to your field.
I can't hear her.
Amanda, could you type that out in the chat?
Yeah, I have no idea what she just said.
No worries. I think that's the joy of Zoom calls. We never know what our Wi-Fi situation is going to be like, but Amanda's giving a thumbs up, so she's going to type it out in the chat for you guys.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one thing about our ponds is all of our acreage drains back to the same ponds.
Okay.
So we're looking at this as something where we're able to use the water more than once for irrigation rather than doing water withdrawn from our wells.
Definitely. And I think it would be really worth it for you guys to consider maybe reaching out to someone just to make sure that you're addressing that efficiency piece. Oh, which Amanda just said. She would be sure that you address the efficiency of the irrigation. So just to make sure to stress that in your application and include as much detail as possible would be great.
Okay.
Awesome. Anyone else want to share their ideas or questions? Yeah, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, couple things. I already do rotational grazing through part of the property.
Mm,
But expanding the rotational grazing is something that I'm working towards at the present time. And the other thing is, in order to do that reliably, I have to develop a well, whether it's just a shallow well that I can use. There was an old well where I'm going to try and do it, but there's two projects that kind of, but $5,000 isn't going to cover it.
well,
Even $10,000 isn't going to cover it, I don't think, because the well would have to be solar powered. That's what I'm
gotcha.
looking for.
Well, I think if you can, unfortunately, this grant round doesn't cover renewable energy projects. So we'd have to look into exactly what the solar powered system would look like. But I think if you can just provide us as much information as possible within your application, it would really help us better understand the needs of farmers across the state. So even if you decide to not apply for the well system this time, we'd still be really interested in hearing about it and how that feeds into the rotational grazing piece.
It's the solar part is not for the energy as much
Yeah.
as because there's no electricity out there.
Gotcha.
Basically, it's going to run a small DC pump the water
Okay.
uphill to a cistern or some type of holding container, and then it'll feed out of that into the watering system for the deer. So
Okay, gotcha.
not an
Not
energy thing.
okay.
It's a requirement because there's no electricity out there.
Got it. Well, I think, I would encourage you to include it depending on what you want to apply for this year. We'd really be interested in hearing about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
I'll be talking to Pam anyway.
Awesome.
One quick follow-up on mulching too. Is synthetic mulch okay with people, or are we looking for what's the definition of mulch, I guess, for in the eyes of you guys?
Yeah, of course. Well, we didn't provide a definition. And so I think we'd be open to welcoming all different types of mulching within this grant round. I think as long as you can create a justification for why you chose the synthetic mulch, we would welcome that. My guess is that, maybe the sustainability of the synthetic mulch, maybe it'll last longer. So I think just coming up with a reasonable explanation is really all we need. And I think, with this grant round being so open, the more explanation, the better. And if you have any questions or any additional information you want to share that maybe you can't fit into your application, I'd really encourage you to reach out to your district. Perfect. Any other questions or ideas? I think this is a really good time to just brainstorm and share thoughts on what we might be applying for. Okay, great. Well, if you have any additional questions, you can feel free to jump in. But Amanda, I'm not sure if you want to unmute yourself, if you have any follow-up thoughts or any of the other folks from the other districts want to share. anything, but I see in the chat that they've included their contact information. I'm just going to type my email in the chat as well.
I just want to thank everybody for joining and echo Benet, and please do reach out to your districts if you have questions. We're always welcome to talk through and sort of brainstorm ideas with you and provide feedback on how to make a stronger application on a one-on-one basis as well. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining tonight. It's really nice to meet you all. I see some familiar faces, but a lot of new ones as well. But please don't hesitate to reach out. You know, we want to make this process as smooth as possible for everyone. And, you know, just with it being the first year of this grant round, we really welcome any ideas. And we also know that there might be things on the application that we didn't address. So we also welcome any feedback. If you're reading through the application, you find something confusing, maybe you come across a typo, please let me know, you know, because it's just an opportunity for us to improve this in the future. Yeah, and Wendy, that's totally fine. You can feel free to reach out to your district staff as those questions come up. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate you all taking the time to be here. And again, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thanks for putting it on.